Esteban Ocon is the man on pole position once again in the FIA Formula 3 European Championship. Welcome to Moscow Raceway, everybody. It is race 3 of the weekend, and so far it has been a dominant weekend by Esteban. He has won the first 2 races, and his championship quest is looking very strong once again, especially as his championship rival, Max Verstappen, retired from race 2. He had an alternator problem, and that stopped him in his tracks, and it also, therefore, of course, meant no points scored by the Dutchman. So Ocon, now 7 times a winner, has a huge advantage in the championship, and he starts on pole position with Tom Blomqvist with him at the front of the grid. Verstappen, for this race, is going to line up 3rd, and he needs a victory, really. He's got to somehow outscore Ocon in order to try to reduce this deficit in the championship. And there is Verstappen lining up 3rd. Best qualifying of the weekend. This is a grid for race 3 based on the driver's 2nd best lap time in the 2nd qualifying session. And then for 4th on the grid is going to be Antonio Fuoco for Prema Power Team, teammate to Esteban Ocon. And you've got race winners within that top 4. Ocon and Verstappen now 7 wins apiece. Blomqvist 3, Fuoco, there he is, with 1 victory. And his normally very vocal fan club has been conspicuous by its absence this weekend. Normally there are lots of Fuoco flags and banners being waved around the circuit, but they haven't really revealed themselves in the same way that there's normally the support for Antonio. But he has had a pretty decent weekend with 2nd place in race 2. Jordan King starts this race 5th on the grid, and Jordan, reigning British champion, somebody that might be able to make some progress, although he struggled a bit to do so in race 2. He was 5th in that, and in part that was a byproduct of the circuit, which has given some dramatic racing over the weekend, but not a huge amount of overtaking. It's been spectacular. We have had some dramas caused by people running wide or making mistakes, but if you want a repeat of the thrilling races at Spa, for example, on a slipstreamer of a circuit, this does not look like it, but it's a track the drivers love because of the mix of corners and track limits, I think, has been really the big talking point of the weekend. This is a man who copped a drive-through penalty, Jake Dennis, in race 1 for exceeding track limits repeatedly. And that has, a bit like at the Hungaroring, certainly shuffled the race order as people have taken penalties. In many ways, this is a circuit likened to the Hungaroring. It's got a similar type of feel to it and, indeed, mix of corners. It's an anti-clockwise track, 3.9 kilometres. First time Formula 3 has been here and running on the long, full circuit this year in partnership with the DTM that's just had a win for Maxime Martin. Lucas Auer will start 7th on the grid. Winner at Hockenheim earlier on in the season, the nephew of Gerhard Berger, of course, former Formula 1 racer, but now the man who looks after the FIA Single-Seater Commission. And Dennis van der Laar starts 8th on the grid for this race, having finished 9th in race 2. So we've got the safety car leaving the grid. It will make its way around to the pit lane, and very shortly the countdown continues, so the cars can be released on the warming-up lap. For 24 racing laps, you're looking at Gustavo Menezes behind the grid girl there, who is 9th on the grid. Gustavo, a couple of 3rd places at Spa. In his first year of racing in Formula 3 at this level, he did do the German Championship last year as a toe in the water, if you like, to Formula 3, but now racing at a much higher, much more competitive level and adapting pretty well to it, it must be said, and getting better and better as the season has gone on. And he has out-qualified for this race. Felix Rosenqvist, he starts there 10th on the grid. Felix, 3rd 2 years ago, runner-up last year. Lots of people's tip for the title, but it's been a really disappointing season at Muka Motorsport for myriad reasons. And Rosenqvist, yet again, finds himself having to work oh so hard to get up the order and try and salvage points out of this race. Esteban Ocon doing all the winning and doing it as a rookie as well in his first year in the championship, and a mighty impressive season it has been. Now, Verstappen was the first person to, since Felix Rosenqvist in Austria last year, do a complete lockout of wins in a Formula 3 weekend. That came at Spa. He then did it again at Norrisring. So Max Verstappen has had 2 back-to-back 3 wins in a weekend events. Esteban Ocon has yet to achieve that, and he's had 2 victories as his biggest score in a weekend, but he's not yet got to the point of taking 3 race wins, and he desperately wants to do that here to prove to people that he's just as good as Verstappen, who's been the real talking point of late because of those 6 wins back-to-back. He had another one earlier on in the year at Hockenheim, and of course Verstappen also coming on the back here of winning the Formula 3 Masters, which may not be quite as fierce a contest as once it was, but it's still worth winning, and he won that last week at Zandvoort. So everyone's been talking about Verstappen and winning, and now, of course, Esteban Ocon wants to remind people that he is the star. He's the championship leader, after all, and he wants a third win out of the weekend. So the grid is complete. 20 cars we have this weekend. The entry a little bit smaller than normal because for a number of drivers it's an expensive weekend. For some of the teams it's an expensive weekend as well, and it's logistically not easy. In terms of mileage, some of the British teams say it's only about as far as going to Jerez, for example, when you actually tot up the number of miles if you were to go testing there. But it's not a cheap weekend, and logistically it's difficult, and so one or two teams and drivers are sitting this one out. Fortec not here, T-Sport not here, Josella Racing not here, and we still are without Ed Jones in the championship because of his back injury sustained at Pau Get Well Soon Ed. So the grid is 20 strong. I'm assuming that Michele Beretta is on the grid. He is towards the back, and I mention him because he's had a really miserable day thus far with lots of penalties and drive-throughs and spins in the second race of the weekend, race 1 today. But Beretta has hopefully regrouped, got himself on the grid, and let's see how he fares in this third race of the weekend. Esteban Ocon then, the pole man. The Deutsche Post grid girls now make their way off the track through the gate in the pit lane wall, and then as soon as the 1 minute board has been completed, then we can have the cars shown the green flag and the warming up lap to get underway. On the evidence thus far, Esteban Ocon needs to muck up the start, really, for anybody else to have a chance. Ocon has been peerless this weekend, with pole positions and wins thus far in every race. Here's the third pole. And what can he do? 7 times a winner this season. Now equal on wins with Max Verstappen. Verstappen didn't finish race 1 because of an alternator problem. The team at the time reporting they didn't know why it had failed, but it's been replaced, and hopefully this one is going to go the distance, because another bad result for Verstappen here would probably be the end of the title dream. It's still just about alive as the engines fire up here in Moscow. The final race for the FIA Formula 3 European Championship. David Addison with you as we look at the grid being cleared. Prema Power Team and Carlin at the front of the grid. Esteban Ocon with Tom Blomqvist lining up second. And Tom has been there or thereabouts, having finished 4th in the first race, 3rd in the second race. Can he take the battle now to Esteban Ocon, the man on pole position? This circuit with a good mix of corners, and they're going to be allowed one last opportunity before they go racing to have a look at them in a moment and get some warmth into the Hankook rubber. The Moscow Raceway, a facility that only opened in 2012, but a very good circuit, very well appointed, and the welcome that the championship has had has been fulsome and friendly. And although it is quite a long way away from Moscow, and therefore where most of the teams are staying, when they do get to the track, they have nothing but praise for the circuit itself. Privately owned, as Blomqvist bogs down on the start to the warming up lap. He gets away now and will be able, of course, to retake his grid position after that, but a little bit of a concern. He doesn't want that to happen when the race gets underway proper. So Blomqvist just a little bit slow off the line, bogged down a little bit. If that does happen when the lights go out and the race starts, then he's going to lose a handful of places. This is how the grid looks. Esteban Ocon and Tom Blomqvist the front of it, Max Verstappen and Antonio Fuoco behind, then Jordan King and Jake Dennis to round out the top 6, Lucas Auer, Dennis van der Laar to round out the top 8, and then Gustavo Menezes and Felix Rosenqvist are ahead of Santino Ferrucci and Nicolas Latifi, Jules Simkoviak, Tatiana Calderon 14th ahead of Roy Nissany, Felix Morales a long way back ahead of teammate Hector Hurst, Sean Galisle, Michele Beretta and a very disappointed Antonio Giovinazzi complete the grid ready for this final race of the weekend for the FIA Formula 3 European Championship. The cars now working their way around this 3.9 kilometre circuit. And for poleman Esteban Ocon, this is the time when he wants as much warmth in the tyres as possible. Working their way then now uphill. This is turn 12. It puts you onto the long, fast back straight, which is somewhere where we've had overtaking, down to turn 13, which is a very tight left-hander at this anti-clockwise track. You see it coming now is how it looks. So turn 1 is a fast left into a rather more tight and slower and therefore intricate double apex left that takes you down a short straight into the Mercedes arena, which is a long right, uphill, left, over the brow, right, downhill, speed building. And then at the end of that back section of the circuit, there is a left-hander for which you can't see the apex, but you turn in, it's a slow corner, and then there's another very intricate bit in that middle sector. So to the grid comes Esteban Ocon. Tom Blomqvist behind, the drivers urging the warmth into the tyres, squirming the cars around, flicking them sideways to generate the temperature. Esteban Ocon trying to bunch everybody up behind. He does not want to be sat on the grid for too long. He slots into place now. The next couple of cars that come out of turn 13 in the background should be the final few to take up their grid positions. We've got Galal, Beretta, and then the final car is the yellow one of Carlin for Antonio Giovinazzi. So on the equivalent line on the grid, at the front of it is Blomqvist, at the back of it is Giovinazzi in the Dragonia I Am colours of Carlin. The green flag says everybody is back from the warming up lap and are where they should be. And now the race director will turn on the red lights. 5 we will have. When the lights go out, we will be racing. Round 21 of the championship is go. 1 or 2 jump starts. Sean Galal appears out of the pack very early indeed, and I think that, not for the first time, has been a jump start from the Indonesian, but Ocon, Blomqvist and Verstappen and Fuoco, the top 4, as they work their way out of turn 1. Beretta is away slowly as well. He is bogged down, so he gets away last, but I think Galal may well have a penalty coming because he certainly was off the line a little bit quicker than others. Meantime, it is Esteban Ocon who leads the way within second spot Tom Blomqvist, and then it's Verstappen ahead of Fuoco, and someone's got turned around in the pack and there's damage. Sorales is the man with damage. Šimkoviak flees the scene of the crime, and Sorales with the front wheel suspended in the air. Let's see, I'm just wondering if this might be a safety car. That car's going to need some work. Sorales not injured, but the car is stranded and he's going to try and launch himself over the wing. Wow, that's impressive. Not as stranded as I thought, but he's now, I'm afraid, done it possibly more damage on landing, and we are going to have a safety car because Sorales, in his efforts to get out of the way, has vaulted over the front wing and now stalled it. So the safety car comes out and the race is going to be neutralised, whilst it's an easy fix to get this parked car off the road. But there's the safety car that will scoop them all up at the end of lap 1, and any gaps that people would have established are soon going to disappear. How did it happen? Šimkoviak got turned around, and it was Sorales going into the back of Roy Nissany that did the damage, in fact. So Nissany has lost his rear wing. He's going to have to pit and could well be a retirement. Sorales then beached on the front wing. He guns it, launched himself over, used it as a ramp, but then I'm afraid the engine died and he couldn't get going again. So Felix Sorales, with this very unorthodox way of trying to clear the problem, doesn't actually help the situation hugely. And so we have the safety car that will collect everybody on this lap number 2 out of 24 here at Moscow Raceway. It's not often you see that in a Formula 3 race, I grant you. So Esteban Ocon backs off the pace. The safety car now hopefully will quicken it, and so the race is neutralised with Ocon, Blomqvist, Verstappen, Fuoco, King, Dennis, Auer, Van der Laar, Rosenqvist, Menezes, the top 10. 11th, Ferrucci. This is Roy Nissany pitting for a new rear wing, if that is doable. May have got some suspension damage as well. Outside the top 10, Ferrucci is 11th, Latifi 12th, Galal 13th after his start. And surprisingly, he has not yet come up as under investigation. Blomqvist has in the Carlin car from the front of the grid, and so too Santino Ferrucci. But Sean Galal, who was absolutely convinced had jumped it, has not yet been investigated. After Galal 13th, 14th is Calderon, 15th is Hurst, 16th Giovinazzi, 17th Šimkoviak. Nissany was 18th over the timing line but is in the pits, and that will elevate Michele Beretta with Felix Sorales out of the race. So Blomqvist is under investigation, so too is Santino Ferrucci. Felix Sorales' car is being pulled out of the way. It's been a very disappointing season for Felix Sorales, and Sean Galal is now under investigation for a jump start. So the Dragonia I Am Carlin cars, 2 of the 3 being investigated, one I think rather more seriously than others. I didn't think Blomqvist jumped it, didn't look as though he had, but we'll see on replay no doubt in a moment. And here is the replay of the start. We don't see the front of the grid from there. You do see Galal, look, who's already gained ground as he storms through the pack, so he was definitely moving before others. We'll hopefully have a shot from the front of the grid and see what was the story for Blomqvist. Might have just crept, but not by very much, I wouldn't have thought. But the cars with a little transponder in them, if that breaks the beam before the lights go out, then the evidence is there for the race director to take advantage of. Roy Nissany out wide at the first corner, and then a bit later in the lap being hit from behind, and that doing the car quite a bit of damage. Safety car goes through once more. We've now done 2 laps, and Gustavo Menezes has just pitted. Now, why is that? He's come down the pit road. I think he might have some frontal damage. And where was that sustained? If it was on the first lap, he'd have pitted at the end of lap 1, wouldn't he? So he's come in now, but I just wonder, behind the safety car, maybe he's run into the back of somebody. You're looking at Sorales once again with this sort of literal jump start to try and get himself over the nose cone that was under the front of the car. But Menezes in the pits, there you can see the new nose being readied at Van Amersfoort. But in order to have sustained that damage under the safety car, perhaps somebody slowed ahead of him and he's gone in the back. We may be able to find some evidence to piece all the story together. Ocon, Blomqvist, Verstappen then is the top three. We are still behind the safety car, and as soon as the lights go out, then we should go back to racing. Nissany is having his new rear wing fitted. He's lost a lap, of course. If Menezes can stay on the lead lap, he should be able to catch up before this safety car period comes to an end. When the lights go out, we know we're going to be ready to go racing once again, and we're not there yet by the look of it. Cars working their way now to the midpoint of the lap. That was turn 8 that you were looking at. This is turn 10 as they drop downhill. Esteban Ocon then just controlling the pace at the moment and ready for the restart when that comes, but no indication is there yet. And ahead of us, as we look out of our eyrie in the grandstand here at the Moscow Raceway, high in the top of the grandstand, the marshals on the timing line have still got the safety car board and the yellow flag. They're not yet being ready with the green flag, so we may have one more lap before we can go back to racing conditions. All of this eating into the available time. Roy Nissany gets back into the race. 35 minutes is the maximum time slot for this race. Is Gustavo Menezes back out? Yes, he is. So Menezes has stayed on the lead lap and is in a big, big hurry, storming on to get himself on the back of the queue. And he should get there, I think, before we go back to racing. So the safety car comes across the timing line, and I think this is going to be the last lap, although it may be that the race director now just keeps it out a little bit longer to let Menezes and Nissany catch up, because what he doesn't really want when the race restarts are some cars going at full race pace and others at a sort of 2/3 pace trying to catch the safety car, but having to do it at a controlled speed because they think yellow flags are still waved around the circuit. So we'll just see whether everybody will get together in one long line before we get the green flag. Of course, the race director keen to let them go racing as fast as he can, as soon as he can. Cars turning out of turn 3. Small climb up to the next left that will bring them over the brow of the hill and then down towards the fast sweep of the back part of the circuit. Ocon with a little flick there to maintain the warmth of the tyres. Gustavo Menezes has just gone storming across the line, having done the best of anybody in sectors 2 and 3. He's a man on a mission, but only at the moment to catch up to the Crocodile. Lights still on. No suggestion as yet on the timing screen that the teams get as well that it will be peeling in the safety car at the end of this lap. Roy Nissany is also trying to play catch up, and he's about to come over the timing line in front of me. He goes past, and there is what's happening up front. Esteban Ocon, who is looking for a three-peat, if you like, a repeat of his earlier 2 wins here, leads the way from Blomqvist and then Max Verstappen, who needs to outscore Ocon for his championship hopes. So there's much to look for on the restart, but how easy it's going to be for any of them to conquer the Frenchman remains to be seen. Are the lights out as it comes towards us? They are. Safety car is in this lap, so we're going to go back to racing now. And Esteban Ocon knows all of this, so he has backed the pace right off. What he wants to do is let the safety car go, stack everybody up behind him, and then when he starts to accelerate, he's got to keep on going and therefore try and build an advantage even before he gets to the timing line. So he can slow them down as long as it's not too much, but once he goes, he's got to keep going. What you can't do is accelerate and then slow, because that just causes great danger behind. So now he starts to accelerate. Tom Blomqvist goes with him, which is not what Ocon was hoping for, and Blomqvist wants to try and stay on his tail all the way down to the first corner. Max Verstappen is lagging back and causing an overlap behind him. Fuoco goes to the outside. Jordan King goes to the inside as they come up towards the timing line. Verstappen, though, has really lost out against Blomqvist, hasn't he, as we go racing once again. Safety car restarts in traffic, sometimes Verstappen's weakness, but we're game on once more for the lead. Ocon to Blomqvist, half a second as they work their way through to start lap number 5. Ocon comes out of turn 2 and he's already starting to get away. He's been able to make the break on the restart just as he has dominated the rest of the weekend. So Esteban Ocon now sprints away. Blomqvist second, Verstappen third, then it's Fuoco, then King, then Jake Dennis there. Look in the red, white and blue colours of the Racing Steps Foundation in 6th. Auer is 7th, Van der Laar is 8th, Rosenqvist is 9th, and then 10th is Nicholas Latifi. Now what, if anything, can the man in second place, Tom Blomqvist, do about the leader? Esteban Ocon it is who leads. The gap was half a second at the start of the lap. It's 6/10 now because Ocon is quicker by 1/10 in sector 1 alone. It looks as though Blomqvist is falling back, but will he drop into the clutches of anybody else? We've not yet had any news, but we are now getting it about jump starts, and the first drive-through goes to Tom Blomqvist. Blomqvist gets a drive-through for a jump start. So does Ferrucci for a jump start, and we wait for confirmation of what is going to happen to Sean Gallile. If anything is coming, it's going to be typed any second and revealed. But Blomqvist, significantly, the man in second, gets a drive-through. And now we have confirmation. Sean Gallile gets one as well. So Blomqvist a drive-through. We're going to have one for Ferrucci and Gallile. Drive-through penalties for a jump start. The three that were investigated found guilty. Bad news for Blomqvist. Good news for Verstappen. It will give him a place. Straight away down the pit lane is coming Santino Ferrucci to get that drive-through out of the way. Wheel to wheel at turn one. Giovinazzi gets ahead of Szymkowiak. Menezes on the back of his teammate with his new nose on that car after his dramas behind the safety car. So one of the pit lane penalties, the drive-through's taken. It's by Ferrucci, but Blomqvist is going to be the significant one. How far down the order will it drop him? Back into the race goes Santino Ferrucci. He's on lap 6 of 24. And having had a fourth place finish at the Norris Ring, it's been a bit of a bump back to reality this weekend. There's the replay. There's the replay. Have a look at Blomqvist. Lights red. Lights out. It was very, very close, wasn't it? But the transponder in the car must have just moved fractionally. Galile's is rather more obvious. Have a look in the top left of the screen. He's well on the move, isn't he? Lights are red. He moves. Lights go out. So that one was rather more obvious. Ferrucci, it was in the middle of that shot as well, but Gallile banged to rights. But Blomqvist, if he did jump it, as the officials say, it was by only fractions of a second. But a jump is a jump. So Blomqvist, even though he gained nothing out of it, started second and is second, still adjudged to have jumped the start. And so he will have to serve a drive-through. He's not doing so yet, however, which makes me wonder whether or not Carlin are questioning this as a team. Over the timing line comes Ocon, and now he's a second and a half clear of Tom Blomqvist in second place. Now, what about Verstappen's efforts? He is lapping quicker than Blomqvist anyway, so he's inching up onto the back of the Brit, irrespective of the penalty that Blomqvist is going to have to take out of turn one. Szymkowiak there goes through ahead of Giovinazzi, with Gustavo Menezes having fallen back behind them now. And not just in terms of track position, but by a couple of cars' lengths as well. So he's not finding it easy to work his way through, and that, I'm afraid, has been a problem of F3 around here this weekend. It's been tight, it's been interesting, but we haven't had the great wheel-to-wheel drama that we saw at Spa. That said, very few circuits can ever match that. Monza is one that normally does. Again, fast and good for slipstreaming and wide too. But here, it's a different set of propositions and problems for the drivers and for the teams, but from a driver's eye, it's a circuit they really have enjoyed racing on. That is Michele Beretta running down in 17th and still having a pretty miserable weekend. Replay here of Giovinazzi in the yellow Carlin car versus Szymkowiak, who goes through on the inside and takes the place, and whilst they've been squabbling, Menezes not able to stay with them, not able to buy back into the battle. So Szymkowiak then, after his early spin, brought back into the hunt by the safety car bunching up the field. He is now in 14th place. And the race leaders will be starting very shortly. Lap 7. We've got 22 minutes to go. We'll keep an eye to the clock as Blomqvist now serves the drive-through, slows right down for the white line, which is the speed limit line, comes into the pits now. And the tasty chicken, Jagonia I Am, Carlin Delara Volkswagen, is going to tumble down the order. People streaming past him. And there's a mirror image, look, because Gallile is in as well, his teammate, to serve his jump start penalty. Blomqvist just did the best of anybody in the middle sector as his last hurrah, I think, before he drops out of the points. So he's going to rejoin effectively in 17th place, depending on where Beretta is. I think he's going to be behind him as the cars then work their way. Yes, he is behind Beretta, but he stays ahead of Ferrucci. So that is going to put now Blomqvist into 17th position. On track, Ocon leads Verstappen 2.5 seconds. Driving standards flags are now coming for those ignoring track limits. Jordan King is one of them. Also Gustavo Menezes, and it's turn one, which is, as it has been all weekend, the bogey corner for many a driver. Esteban Ocon then looking very impressive up front. Max Verstappen second as he works his way through turns 8 and 9. There is Verstappen doing his best then to go after Ocon down the fast straight into turn 13 at the end of the lap. For Ocon running in third place, quicker than he has been earlier in the race in the first sector, as now the fuel load comes down and the tyres are getting warm once again after the safety car period. But Fuoco not being able to stay on the back of Verstappen, who looks now as though he's going to be good for second place. Now, what about third? Fuoco and Jordan King. That's the battle. And King ain't that far behind the Italian. Best lap of the race, just done by Esteban Ocon. Hector Hurst now has got Jules Kowiak behind him. This is for 12th. Over the timing line they come. Hurst benefiting from dramas on the first lap to gain places. We now have, under investigation, incident between cars 21 and 4. 21 is Felix Serralles, 4 is Roy Nissany. But I'm not really sure there was much Serralles could have done about that, because it was a spinning Kowiak ahead that caused Nissany to slow, and into the back of him went Serralles. But the stewards are going to have a look at it anyway. Serralles is out of the race. Nissany, to all intents and purposes, is out because he's a lap down in 19th place. He can't recover really from there. Ocon continuing to pull away. 2/10 in the first sector alone on this lap, and Felix Rosenqvist now is being warned about failing to manage the track limits at turn 1. The race director has one camera at turn 1, one camera at turn 13 with different angles available to him, and a different official whose job it is to monitor that shot. And as soon as a car goes over the white line, the information is relayed to the race director, who then warns the drivers. They get 3 strikes, and then it goes to the stewards for a decision as to whether a penalty should come for ignoring track limits. But they are warned about it. So it has been the undoing of quite a few in terms of lap times in qualifying. I think in terms of racing, we've been relatively free of penalties, but we've certainly been blessed with lots of warnings. Esteban Ocon has just gone across the timing line. 9 laps of 24 are done. He leads by 2.7 seconds with Verstappen, Fuoco, King, Dennis, Auer, the top 6. Kowiak versus Hector Hurst then. 11th and 12th they run as they come up towards the timing line. Over the line, Hurst stays ahead. Kowiak is close. Giovinazzi is behind them in 13th place. Hurst having gained, of course, as others peeled off and served their penalties ahead of him a lap ago. Blomqvist then is in 16th place now. Ferrucci is in 17th place, and it's Galile and the lap Nissany to round out the order. The one car that we've lost being that of Felix Serralles. Kowiak getting a little bit ragged there as he drifts up onto the curb. Frustration building, perhaps, because he can't find a way past Hector Hurst ahead of him here. Over the brow, into the left-hander. There you can see Jules Kowiak dropping downhill. Second gear corner, right on the back of Hector Hurst, but closing is one thing. Getting past is a completely different proposition. And Kowiak has had some good runs this season. Hector Hurst, no stranger to a Formula 3 car either, because he raced in the Euro F3 Open Series last year. He, like Team Westtech, stepping up to the FIA Championship this year. And then tucked up behind him is Jules Kowiak for Van Amersfoort Racing. He runs a little bit wide out of turn 12, as indeed does the man behind him, Giovinazzi, but he's trying to maintain momentum and then carry that speed onto the back straight. Over the line goes Ocon. Another best lap of the race has just been done, but then eclipsed by Verstappen. Interesting. It's by less than a tenth, but Verstappen is now the fastest man on the circuit. Menezes challenges Giovinazzi on the outside at turn 13. Can't find a way through, and that tight left-hander, it's a bit more than a 90 left, brings the cars onto the pit straight, where Menezes challenges Giovinazzi on the outside, but he can't live with him on the outside at turn 1. He has to back out of that and slot back in behind him. Giovinazzi, the Italian, keeps the American at bay. Lap 11 we're on, 17 more minutes of the race to go. And after that safety car period, it could be that we end up being pretty close on time and laps to come the end. We'll see how it pans out. Still a good number of laps left here for Menezes to try and find a way past Giovinazzi. This battle is for 13th and 14th places. As up front, Esteban Ocon pulls away from Verstappen in sector 1 of this lap once again. So Verstappen's last lap was a good one, but it's not enough to bring him up onto the back of the race leader, who's at turn 12 at the moment. Coming down for Giovinazzi through turn 10. Making his way uphill, and a mistake at the bottom of that section compromises you because you lose the momentum on this climb uphill. It's a little bit similar, that section, to the final few corners at the Hungaroring. Now, onto this long, fast straight, down towards the end of the lap. Driving standards flag now for Felix Rosenqvist, all to do with track limits at turn 1. 2.5 seconds is the lead gap, and in fact, again, Verstappen a little bit quicker over the course of the whole lap by 0.2. Fractionally faster. Menezes gets past Giovinazzi, goes wide, and Giovinazzi back through on the inside. He could see that one coming. Menezes had all the speed but couldn't slow the car down for the corner, so he drifted out wide. Past him goes Antonio Giovinazzi. So he's back ahead once again. 13th and 14th changes once and then changes twice. Menezes ahead, Menezes runs wide, Giovinazzi through and picks up the place. So Giovinazzi, the Italian driver, goes back to 13th, but while he's squabbling with Menezes like this, he's not catching the man ahead of him, which is Jules Szymkowiak for 12th position. The leading runners getting very strung out, surprisingly. You can see the way the gaps have opened up in this final race of the three. That is Hector Hurst, who is still only 4/10 up on Jules Szymkowiak as they work their way through this middle sector of the lap. Szymkowiak having had his best finish of the year at a circuit not dissimilar, namely the Hungaroring, but in fairness, that was a result helped by many more people there being given drive-through penalties for track limits, and that did bring him up the order a bit. How is Tom Blomqvist getting on? He's still mired down in 16th place. He's also 3.5 seconds behind Michele Beretta. So not only has he not yet been able to think about overtaking, he's not yet even managed to catch up to anybody. Such was the time lost with that drive-through. Menezes attacks on the grass this time. That's really brave stuff, heading down towards turn 13, and he's going to do it again on the inside now. Can he hang on to the place this time? Again, Giovinazzi goes for the switchback. He tries to get up alongside as they pound past the pits, but this time Menezes hangs onto the position. Giovinazzi attacks again at turn 1, but this time Gustavo Menezes, with all of that bravery, heading down on the grass to turn 13, has been able to make it stick, and onto lap number 13 he has gone, now up into 13th place. It's still outside the points. It still achieves really nothing in the grand scheme of things for him as far as points are concerned, but there's pride at stake, and that was really brave racing as Gustavo Menezes, grass and all, got up the inside of Giovinazzi, and having gone through, the fastest lawnmower in the business is pulling away. There it is, 2 wheels on the grass. He kept on coming, and eventually Giovinazzi realises that he's got to give him a bit more room because Menezes is not going to give up. And not only that, but with dirty tyres having been on the grass, he got it all slowed down in time and took the place and held on to it. Look at that. 2 wheels on the grass. Up the inside he goes. Eventually, elbows out, wriggles his way back onto the circuit and keeps the place. Awesome stuff. Esteban Ocon leading from Max Verstappen. 2.2 seconds last time. The gap had come down a little bit more. Is Verstappen being able to maintain this? He brought the gap down in Sector 1. He brought the gap down a little in Sector 2. And so now it's 1.8 seconds. He has found cumulatively 3/10 on that lap, has Max Verstappen. So Esteban Ocon leading the way. Now, is the gap coming down because he's struggling, or that Verstappen is pounding on more impressively, or because Ocon is biding his time and just looking after the tyres here? That's Blomqvist you've just seen gain a position. He is now ahead of Michele Beretta, so he's up into 15th spot. Beretta rather cheekily tries to come back at him on the inside, but that's not going to work. Blomqvist much the quicker of the two, so he will hang on to the place. But Ocon in the first sector only 3 thousandths quicker than Verstappen. But over the last few laps, the gap has come down little by little. I still think he's got it all under control. He's going to win this potentially by the smallest feasible margin, but Verstappen is doing his best to get onto terms with the Frenchman. Esteban Ocon making his way uphill once again. We have another driving standards flag, and it is now for Roy Nissany, who's not had a really happy race anyway, given the damage sustained early on and then the pit stop to sort out that damaged rear wing. But now he's been given this warning about the track limits, the Israeli driver. Esteban Ocon then continues to lead as he makes his way down towards turn 13. And Ocon, who has raced here in Formula Renault Eurocup, therefore has some track knowledge that maybe his rivals don't have, has been putting that to good effect over the course of the weekend. He was third in the Formula Renault Eurocup last year, Esteban Ocon. As they come over the timing line, he leads by 1.7 seconds, so Verstappen is just a fraction nearer. Verstappen, don't forget, in his first year of car racing, he's done a lot of karting and a bit of testing in the winter, but in terms of actual car racing, first season. And he does a very impressive job indeed. Hector Hurst versus Jules Szymkowiak. Hector Hurst is doing a grand job also, keeping Szymkowiak at bay. Still these two together. Now 11th and 12th they're squabbling over because of penalties for others further up the road. That's brought them one spot higher up the classification. Hurst, dare one suggest, is holding up Szymkowiak now, but the former Formula 2 and Formula Renault racer is being able to keep Szymkowiak at bay. Gustavo Menezes, Szymkowiak's teammate, is getting closer and closer and closer. So this battle that is for 11th, 12th and 13th places is building up nicely. Getting a replay of Szymkowiak coming through turn 1, right on the back of Hurst, touching the back of Hector Hurst's car indeed, as he just brushes against the tyre. Has that done any damage to Hector Hurst's left rear wheel? Szymkowiak was the one that got sideways after the contact, but for now, they have survived. We are now having Michele Beretta being warned about track limits, and Gustavo Menezes. This is all for turn 1. Hector Hurst is keeping Szymkowiak at bay. Hector Hurst, the Oxford-based, Southampton-born Brit, coming onto the back straight. Szymkowiak behind, and as they have done so, the leaders have just gone across the line, and the lead gap's come down again. 1.4 seconds it is now. Verstappen is chipping away, but can Ocon respond if he needs to? Down the pit lane comes Menezes, by the look of it, so having got himself into a challenging position. He comes in, he's got a drive-through for track limits. Gustavo Menezes gets a drive-through penalty. It comes up on the screen, and straight away he peels off to take it. So Gustavo Menezes down the pit road. He's had one pit stop for a new wing. He's had one drive-through penalty now for track limits. And in this snakes and ladders race, having just gained track position, he's going to slide back down the order once again. The race leaders now on lap 16. We have got 9.5 minutes to go. So it might, I think, end up going to time, this. 9 laps does not equate to 9 minutes. So we've now also got a meatball flag, the mechanical warning flag, for number 15, which is Jules Szymkowiak. So as one Van Amersfoort car serves a drive-through, the other gets the mechanical warning flag, black with the orange circle in it, the meatball flag, to say there's a mechanical problem with your car that you may not be aware of. Now, what's that going to be all about? Front wing damage, potentially, after he hit the back of Hector Hurst. And if the officials feel it's not safe, they want the car in, and it'll have to be checked over by the team and indeed by the scrutineers. They'll want to look at that car as well. So we'll try and identify how bad that damage is. Drive-through penalty for Michele Beretta, yet another one. He's had a fair litany of them this weekend for assorted offences. And there, up the inside, Lucas Auer takes a position away. Jordan King has got a problem because Jake Dennis has already gone through for 4th. Up to 5th goes Lucas Auer. Jordan King tries to get in the slipstream and fight back at turn 1, but King losing 2 places on that lap. Wheel to wheel with Lucas Auer up the inside over the curb. They touch, and Lucas Auer gets launched into a big, big spin. Jordan King has broken suspension and is out of the race, and Lucas Auer is going to be out as well. Szymkowiak is pitting at the moment as you look at Lucas Auer, who I don't think is very amused by all of that. Jordan King tried to fight back on the inside. Contact at turn 1. It's put them both out of the race. The Austrian stalks away, and he may well want a word with Jordan King after that. Well, that takes them both out of the race. King had been losing places anyway. Both Dennis and Auer had just got ahead of him. This was Lucas Auer making the pass. Through he went, and Jordan King knew exactly what he had to do, and that was to try to get in the wheel tracks and have a go at the next corner. He went to the inside coming out of turn 1 into turn 2. Auer moved across, put him up on the curb. I don't really think Jordan King could necessarily have backed out of it because he was virtually fully alongside, as that angle seemed to show it. But Lucas Auer, not for the first time getting involved in contact this year. I remember him and Sorales at Spa. Similar kind of incident, except at Spa, it was Sorales who was launched into the spin. Here, airborne and spinning, Lucas Auer. That's straight away under investigation, and the safety car comes out for the second time. And this puts the field nose to tail. It's only got 7 more minutes to run this race, and it has brought the top 2 together. And Jordan King, rather more dismissive of all of that than Lucas Auer, who's pretty hot under the collar about it. But Jordan King's, despite the finger wagging, not taking the bait. He felt it was his corner. Lucas Auer did not. And we'll see what the stewards think about that. But it could well be that there is a penalty that gets carried over to Spielberg, the next venue for the championship. But Lucas Auer is definitely not finding fault in his driving. Jordan King, though, is not looking hugely apologetic. Be good to have another look at that. But certainly Jordan King was at least halfway up the inside. And even if he had hit the brakes as Auer moved across on him, I'm not sure he could have got out of the way completely. So the safety car is on track. And as the field works its way then now down through this little corkscrew coming out of turns 3 and 4, are we going to get many more racing laps in? 6 more minutes are on the clock. It is going to go to time, isn't it? Rather than the number of laps. As I say, it's under investigation, that incident. There are the drivers, or surviving driver, Jordan King. I think Lucas Auer has stalked away now. Jordan King left to ponder what was going on. I'm still intrigued to know why he'd lost a place to Jake Dennis, because it did seem as though to lose 2 places on a lap must have had either an incident somewhere and therefore lose momentum, or a mechanical problem. But a mechanical problem would not suggest the retaliation that he took to Lucas Auer to try and reclaim a place. So maybe he had a little drama somewhere that lost him momentum, and Dennis was able to capitalise, and then so too Lucas Auer. But the 2 cars being removed, the field turning its way through. Here we go again. Jordan King keeps on coming. There's certainly a gap there, but he gets squeezed up onto the curb. Well, he was certainly partially alongside, otherwise they wouldn't have made contact, and therefore Auer gave him a squeeze. And although Jordan King may have tried to back out of that, he still did have some claim to the corner, I would say, by being up on the inside. Lucas Auer fundamentally disagrees with all of that, as you can tell, but we'll now see what the stewards think, and they may well have access to closed circuit cameras as well that the circuit has put in for another look at that from a different angle. But I still think that Lucas Auer, not for the first time this year, is perhaps being a bit overly aggressive in the way that he drives. We shall see what the stewards feel. So Jordan King, last year's British champion, is out. Lucas Auer's difficult season continues. Jordan King had a podium finish to start the weekend. He was second in the first race, but I'm afraid it's not a happy end to the weekend for the reigning British F3 International Series champion as he walks away. Lucas Auer's car then is out of harm's way, and that hopefully means we might be able to get back to racing this time. I'm looking from our vantage point over to the exit of turn 2. Jordan King's car is being attended to, but I would have thought that's far enough off the road now. It's there are so many different configurations of the Moscow race, where there you can see it is well out of the way, because that strip of tarmac is not part of the race circuit that we are using. That's part of a different configuration of the track for school races, club races, domestic races, motorbike races here. You can see all the different strips of tarmac to divide the circuit up for all its multitudinous uses. And so as the race continues behind the safety car, we've got 3.5 minutes. We may be able to go back to racing this time, but traditionally the race director will give them one faster lap to get a bit more warmth back into the tyres before they go racing, which is a perfectly good idea for safety reasons. And if we are going to have another lap behind the safety car after this, we're going to get perhaps just one race lap in, but we'll see what the call is. Race 3 has certainly over the course of the season been the one with all the dramas. Remember the Budapest third race, when it started to rain right at the end and it had to be stopped early because of the changing conditions. Sven Stopper, who is the race director, wants to let them go racing if he can, but he doesn't want any overt danger. So if he feels that the cars and the drivers need another lap behind the safety car at a quicker pace for warmth to be put back into the tyres, then that is what he will allow. And the safety car has stayed out as it comes down. You can see there to turn 13. Glorious weather the teams have enjoyed at Moscow. Yesterday particularly has been a scorching day. Today very warm again, not quite as warm I don't feel as yesterday, but great conditions. And you have this image that Moscow is a cold country. Blimey, not this weekend, not here. It has not been. Drivers in the earlier DTM race, 70 minutes inside the cars, absolutely dripping wet when they got out of them. And even though there are a couple of places where you can catch your breath, it's still a very physical circuit. So 2 minutes and 17 seconds remain. A safety car lap is 2:12. They should just about get back for one racing lap, I think. No further action between Felix Solaris and Roy Nissany. That we have been told by race control. That was the lap 1 drama, remember. And Jordan King's car, with its broken suspension, dragged out of the way. The circuit now is clear. Do we go racing this time? The light, it still flashes on top of the safety car, but it does seem to be going faster. And so as it works its way now through turn 8 and 9, then we look for confirmation that we'll get the green flag. If not, this time the race effectively will end behind the safety car, because there's only time for one more lap at the end of this. Safety car in this lap. It's going to be a one-lap dash to the flag. So 35 minutes is the time slot, and it could be gloves off, anything to happen on this final lap of the race that has got to start within a minute, and it should do. So the safety car will come in this time. A green flag will be made ready. And then Max Verstappen has got one lap on which to do something about Esteban Ocon, who has slowed the pack right down. What he wants, of course, is for the race really to end now. But I don't think he's going to be able to drag this out for 46 seconds. Look how everybody is bunched up behind, all on their toes, ready to rejoin. Ocon weaving around, slow, slow, slow. And now gets himself in the right line and starts to accelerate down to the final corner. He'll cross the line with about 25 seconds, but Ferrucci is on the grass, has some speed up earlier than others. Verstappen is ahead of Ocon into the last corner. He's run out wide. He tries to defend as they come across the line. Ocon is back ahead. They bang wheels virtually going down to turn one. Esteban Ocon is ahead once more. Verstappen round the outside. He's going to run wide. He runs off the circuit and he has to give way. That might have been his only chance. Fuoco runs third and Jake Dennis fourth. Ocon keeps the lead, gets away. But now Fuoco tries to buy into it on the inside as they drop into turn three. We have a yellow flag somewhere on this opening lap of the restart. In other words, the last lap of the race. And it's down at turn 13. The last corner has tripped people up before they got to the green flag. And so on this last lap of the race, Ocon has sorted out the challenge of Verstappen. Now have a look. Here they come down towards the last corner. Ocon had slowed them right down. Look in the background, it's Ferrucci that gets squeezed onto the grass. Others, as they quicken their pace, find slower cars ahead, and Verstappen swoops round the outside of Ocon, coming into the last corner. So he bags the race lead, carries the speed into the corner and runs out wide, tries to defend from Ocon, who's got the inside line. Now, where does the contact come? Because there's this yellow flag that has come lower down the pack. The rights and wrongs of Verstappen overtaking at that section of the circuit after the safety car line up to the stewards to debate. The net result is that the order has got back to how it should be, with Ocon ahead as he comes then to turn 13 for the last time. And as he breaks for the corner, Esteban Ocon is going to take an 8th win of the championship season. Esteban Ocon comes across the line. 8 wins for Ocon. The championship lead extended. Max Verstappen takes second. Antonio Fuoco takes third. 4th for Jake Dennis. 5th, Felix Rosenqvist. And 6th to Dennis van der Laar. Tom Blomqvist, great recovery for 7th. 8th, Tatiana Calderon. Hector Hurst, 9th. And Antonio Giovinazzi, 10th. And with the race winner, Esteban Ocon, making it a 1-3 with Antonio Fuoco for Prema Power Team. Crucially, he outscores Max Verstappen once again. The advantage grows in the title race. It's been another good day's work for the Frenchman in the championship, and significantly, he takes his first triple of the season. 2 wins of a weekend. Yeah, that's easy done by Ocon, but he hadn't up to today had the 3. Well, he has now. How much of that last corner before the green flags flew the stewards need to look at? We shall see post-race. I don't really think Verstappen gained anything out of it, but it's up to the officials to have a look anyway. As there, Esteban Ocon runs off the road, runs to the very far reaches of the runoff tarmac. Round 21 of the championship, won by Esteban Ocon. Max Verstappen it is, who takes second. Antonio Fuoco third, ahead of Jake Dennis and then Felix Rosenqvist. Dennis van der Laar, 6th from Tom Blomqvist after his drive-through. Tatiana Calderon, 8th. Hector Hurst, 9th. And Antonio Giovinazzi, 10th. Sean Gallile after a drive-through, 11th. Gustavo Menezes after a drive-through, 12th. Ahead of his teammate after a spin, Jules Szymkowiak. Santino Ferrucci after a drive-through, 14th. Michele Beretta, drive-through, 15th. Roy Nissany after his rear wing damage was in 16th place. And the one that we lost at the very end was Nicholas Latifi, because he got involved in this skirmish at the last corner, ran off the road, and it was Latifi who did not finish. As you see, the touch of wheels between Ocon and Verstappen on the run down to turn 1. Verstappen kept his foot in but ran out wide, wasn't able to take advantage of that. So Esteban Ocon comes through as the victor. And as soon as he'd been able to secure the position ahead of Max Verstappen on that last lap, so he started to get away. But how much debate there will be post-race, well, all will be revealed, won't it? In replay, this is how the cars came across the line, but Prema Power Team has had a stunning weekend. Esteban Ocon, 3 poles, 3 wins. and other drivers significantly for the team on the podium as well, namely Antonio Fuoco, but good results in that race also from Dennis van der Laar, proving that Prema does not just revolve around one driver, even though Ocon has certainly been the star of the team, maybe the championship this season. So, great celebrations at Prema, and we await Esteban Ocon, who pulled off to the side of the road out of the back part of the circuit. I don't think has got back to Parc Fermé. No, the car, I thought, was driving to one side in order for celebrations. Ocon has stopped. Now, is he out of fuel, or is it something rather more serious than that? And if it is out of fuel, is that a problem for fuel sampling at the end of the race? I need to have a look at the regulations for that. But Esteban Ocon, race winner, is going to come back rather ignominiously on the end of a tow rope here. And therefore, the presentations are going to be delayed whilst the winner returns to the pit lane. So that wasn't really how the team expected its victorious driver to come. But Esteban Ocon took the win by, in the end, 0.6 of a second. And the car being brought back now. The championship now looks like this, with 379 playing 263, a huge margin between Ocon and Verstappen. This 116-point margin between the two. Lucas Auer, their third, ahead of Blomqvist, then Fuoco and Jordan King to round out the top six. That's how it looks at the moment, as the very odd sight of the race winner coming back on the tow rope, Esteban Ocon, making his way back towards the presentation area and, critically, the scrutineering area as well. So, for why did the car stop? That's what we need to know. So he makes his way towards the end of the lap, the slowest he has been all weekend. And at the end of a great weekend for him, the car parks by the side of the road, but in the end comes back on a tow rope, not at all the way that he would have anticipated ending his race. So we'll await news as to whether Esteban Ocon has been able to tell the team anything as to what the problem might be. Prema Power Team's mechanics wait patiently, so do all the people on the podium, waiting and waiting and waiting for the race winner to arrive. And gradually he will get there. The incident between Verstappen and Ocon on that restart is under investigation as well, which I suspect is as much the overtake as the wheel banging, but the stewards are going to have a look at that as well. So, the long straight to go for Esteban Ocon, and then finally he'll make his way up to the podium. So his 8th victory of the season, but this isn't quite how you anticipate doing your lap of honour. Let's just recap the top three. Antonio Fuoco, who's already at the podium, ready to make his way to the third step. He came home in third position after a good weekend for him here in Russia. Max Verstappen, in the end, up to second and did his best to attack Ocon on that restart, but it just was not to be. Max Verstappen then comes home for second place, 0.6 of a second behind. But Esteban Ocon is the man who takes win number 8 of the season and does so in fine style, doesn't he? Esteban Ocon extends the championship lead and he's back on winning ways after a retirement at Spa, after a penalty indeed at Norrisring for contact with Blomqvist. Here, finally, he's taken his much wanted and perhaps much overdue 3 in a row of a weekend. 3 wins in 3 races here, and this enormous advantage in the championship now. Prema Power Team celebrate a win, but a little bit puzzled perhaps as to why the car should end up parked by the side of the road. And let's hope that that's nothing sinister that's going to affect what otherwise was a great drive by Esteban Ocon. And still the car has not yet made it back to the presentation area. Everybody else waiting and waiting and waiting. I tell you, it's been a very slow recovery in terms of the speed of the course car, but it's finally got here now. Behind it is the course closing car. You can see them coming down the pit lane, so the Mercedes recovery vehicle, then Esteban Ocon's Dallara, and then the course cars, the green flag saying that the circuit is now open for the track workers to leave. And all the course cars come pouring in. So it's going to be a pretty rapid podium, this, I think, as the drivers are there. There's a big round of applause from the fans in the grandstand for the race winner, who appears on a tow rope. And the championship officials are there. Arriving in shot just on the right, in the middle of the three in the white shirt, Bob Bassett, who is the FIA's technical delegate for this Formula 3 Championship. And it'll be up to him to make sure that the car is compliant with the regulations. I'm not suggesting that it shouldn't be in any way, but I'm just wondering if it's fuel, whether any of that fuel needs to be sampled. If there's not enough, is there a problem? Or indeed, if it was marginal, is that why the team may have told him to shut off the engine and make sure that there was some fuel left? That's all pure speculation, I'll grant you. It could be something rather more sinister than that, and hopefully we shall find out post-race. There is Esteban Ocon then, embraced by the team. They don't look unduly concerned, do they, all the engineers there? Smiles all round. So, Esteban. Avec plus vitesse, he will play up to the podium, because the presentations await, and yes, now the driver's being whisked up the stairs. Antonio Fuoco will be there. So too will Max Verstappen as third and second. We need a winner, and he'll be there any moment. So in marginally cooler conditions now towards the end of the afternoon, it's just gone 6:10 here local time. The drivers and the engineers have done their work for the weekend, but this perhaps at the end of the season we'll point to as the weekend of the championship for Esteban Ocon. This was the one that really mattered. 3 wins for him and a non-finish for rival Max Verstappen, who'd done a really good job over the 6 races over Spa and Norrisring to go from 5th up to 2nd in the championship. And now he's looking at an enormous gap once again that's going to be well nigh impossible, I fear, to make up. He might be able to close it a little, but certainly not to overhaul Esteban Ocon, who even now perhaps is looking as a champion-elect. Well, that is the podium. It is ready. All we need now are the drivers, who will be there as soon as possible. Esteban Ocon, Max Verstappen, Antonio Fuoco, the top 3, and they're also the top 3 rookies as well. So the drivers for 2 podiums, rookie and overall. So I think we're just about ready. There in the middle is the taller frame of Esteban Ocon, congratulated by Christophe Hever, the championship's promoter, with his back to us. And it will be Esteban Ocon who in a moment will step forward as the winner of round 21 of the championship. An 8th win for Esteban Ocon. He will go to the top step of the podium. A delighted man. Prema Power Team celebrates success once again as the Italian team is represented on the podium. It's a 1-3, but second place goes to Van Amersfoort Racing, and that means Max Verstappen, who has been the gun in that team all season. And Verstappen forces a smile. Defeated by Ocon, yes. Second place, though, is good for him. And Antonio Fuoco for Prema Power Team once again for 3rd place. The Ferrari Driver Academy driver joins the Lotus Junior driver Esteban Ocon on the podium. And for the 3rd time as a race-winning anthem this weekend, the French national anthem will play. For Esteban Ocon then, the French national anthem, the winning rookie and the winner outright here in each of the 3 races. The trophies presented, and Viktor Kiryanov, the president of the Russian Automobile Federation, gives the winner's trophy to Esteban Ocon. Then the trophy for 2nd place will go to Max Verstappen, but first there is the winning rookie trophy for Esteban Ocon. So the 2 podium ceremonies being combined here. So he's got his winner and his rookie winner's trophy. Then Prema Power Team. Manfred Sandbichler of Hankook hands over the trophy to the Italian team, which has also had a cracking weekend with good results for its drivers. For second place, Max Verstappen will now receive his trophy once more from Viktor Kiryanov. And Max, in his first season of car racing, you still forget that because of the speed and the bravery and the results with which he's had this year. He looks the real deal, and he will only get better for sure. Racecraft is not in doubt, and those two back-to-back three-peats at Spa and the Norris Ring marking him out as a real star. He gets his second-place rookie trophy as well, and Manfred Sandbichler steps forward once more to hand over the trophy to Antonio Fuoco. That's his third overall, and then third rookie home. That trophy is ready for him as well. So for Antonio Fuoco, Max Verstappen and Esteban Ocon, handshakes all round. They get together for the photographs on the podium. And Esteban Ocon, who is a far happier man when he's in the middle of this podium shot because it means he's the winner, smiles once more. He had been a bit glum after second place finishes at the likes of Hungaroring or Spa. The dramas he had with that penalty for contact with Tom Blomqvist at the Norris Ring. But with all the pressure off for the weekend, the champagne is sprayed here. The Henkel Trocken is set to douse drivers, team reps accordingly. Esteban Ocon will leave Russia, dare one say, with one hand on the championship trophy now. The advantage he's got is going to be so hard to overhaul. And the way that he's driven this year with smoothness and speed and consistency has marked him out as a real star of the future. And potentially, he's just going to get better and better and better. The next stop is the first weekend of August when the teams go to the Red Bull Ring. He's going to be very hard to beat there as well. After 3 intriguing races in Russia, Esteban Ocon takes 3 victories. He leaves Russia with a massive advantage in the championship. Are we looking at the champion long before the season's end? For now, from Russia, thanks for your company. From David Addison, bye-bye.